I'm here to welcome you. I'm Crosby Kemper. I'm the director of the Kansas City Public Library. You are here in the Kansas City Public Library, and thank you for being here. We're honored to have the Learning in Libraries Conference, honored to have all of you very distinguished guests in the library. I would like to say just a couple of things about the library, and then I'm going to say a couple of things about learning in libraries, since I have the podium. But a couple of things. Be sure, I don't think we have a scheduled full-scale tour of the library, so I just want to mention a few things you should see. Obviously, the fifth floor, this floor is worth exploring. If the weather gets a little better, you might want to go out on our rooftop terrace. You can play chess on our heroic-sized chess set out there. At 9 o'clock, the Missouri Valley Room will open, which is our special collections, local history, genealogy, et cetera. It's a beautiful room. The third floor is our main reading room, the Kaufman Grand Reading Room, we think, fairly spectacular. And on the second floor, we have our children's library, which we also think has something to offer, and some color and imagination. The Kirk Hall, you probably came through the main hall of the library. Please go back to what we call 1 North, the Gouldner Gallery. You'll see a very interesting exhibit called Eminent Domain, the photographer brought to us, taking pictures of a neighborhood that the city destroyed in building a large police evidence lab. Kind of an interesting study. And we have other exhibits. On the second floor, we have a new gallery that we've opened with a local artist who's very interesting. And on the first floor, we have an exhibit of Lucille Bluford, who was the longtime publisher and editor of our African-American newspaper, The Call, which during its heyday was one of the 3 great African-American newspapers that were read around the country. And there is a very interesting story, legal story, about her application to the University of Missouri, which was denied, and the courts forced her to University of Missouri to accept her, and then the University of Missouri, instead of actually taking her as a student, paid for her to go to the University of Kansas. So. A fascinating thing. Anyway, and then in our bottom level, our what we call the vault level is this used to be a bank building. We changed the vault in the lower level into a film vault. You should take a look at that. It's a film screening room. I do want to say something about learning in libraries. It's the 50th anniversary of the Moynihan Report, and some of you may have been reading the studies, the updated studies about the Moynihan Report and the studies of family breakdown, which turns out, as it turns out, Moynihan was right, but he was right in a way that he didn't quite understand at the time. Family breakdown is, of course, not just in the black family, it's in the white family and the Hispanic family as well. Robert Putnam, Charles Murray have written books about what this means for us. We're essentially creating an underclass in this country. There was talk about that in the 60s, and we've ignored that until the last few months, I think, but I think that's becoming something important. There's a brand new study out, some of you read about, by a man named Raj Chetty at Harvard about the neighborhood effect, which relates to family breakdown and some of the other issues, but which is actually it's an extraordinary study because it shows that growing up in certain neighborhoods, regardless of class, eliminating class and income, eliminating race, eliminating education levels, where you live if you are poor, makes a huge difference as to what your life chances are, your future income, your mobility, and it's interesting. I would just note one thing about it. The bottom city, he looks at the 100 largest cities and their neighborhood effects. The worst neighborhood effect for your life chances is Baltimore. The Pew Internet study has come out in April, very recently, April 1st, with a study of smartphones. And they're interesting statistics. 35% in 2011 of adults had smartphones. 64% as of the measurement time of the current study have smartphones. Black and Hispanic smartphone ownership is 70 and 71%, higher than white ownership. Obviously, it's related to education, 78% of college graduates versus 52% of high school graduates. Higher urban areas, 68% versus suburban 66 and rural 52. Latino, black, and young people in general, so particularly young Latino and black kids, are smartphone dependent. They have no other connection to the internet except maybe the connection that you all know about here, which is right here in the library. which is interesting that Pew didn't mention that in passing, because they know that. This mirrors the Google Fiber study of Kansas City, interestingly enough, that there is very high usage in the inner city of smartphones. But here's some of the other interesting stuff from the report, and it mirrors what we know in the library about this. People are using their smartphones for job searching, but there's a decline, and for information. But there is, as you get to more serious services, things like reaching government services, actual education, classes, for instance, or job application as opposed to job searching, the usage of the smartphone declines. For obvious reasons, it seems to me. And 1/4 of all folks have suspended service at some point, which is also important. And that's important because a couple of statistics I'm going to give you in the Kansas City School District that we know directly right here, our school district where the library is. So they rolled out a one-to-one computer program this year. After they rolled out the one-to-one computer program, very expensive, they discovered that 70%, if they'd read the Google study or the Pew study, they would have known that this was coming, but 70% of the kids in the Kansas City School District do not have a home connection. So the rolling out of that computer was fairly meaningless. There are other things that are problems with it, but just that one statistic. 40%, and this mirrors some of the suspended service things and some of the usage statistics, 40% of those kids have at least 2 addresses during the course of the school year. This is mirrored in most urban school districts, by the way. So our superintendent, by the way, you can see it in the paper today, has just taken a job in Atlanta, which is interesting. This is also one of the problems that those of you who are in urban situations will know about. He's taken a job in a much larger school district for a lot more money after having just, in the last year, achieved accreditation, provisional accreditation of the school district, which was unaccredited for a couple of years. He achieved that while reading scores and math scores were actually going down. Inexplicable. The last thing I want to tell you is that this week we've had in the library a woman named Mariah Evans. Some of you will know her research. Her study is called Family, Scholarly, Culture, and Educational Success, Books and Schooling in 27 Nations, 20-year, 27 Nations study that shows the most powerful correlation, very variable correlation in academic success is the number of books in the home. That's, of course, a proxy for something, and not the thing itself. We couldn't just airlift books into everybody's home and expect success. But it is a proxy for the cultural effects of book learning, the cultural effects of what she calls the idea of pure preference, which is the act of choosing a book, the act of choosing your first book, which may be the most, well, all these issues of neighborhood, class, family structure are limiting effects. The most liberating effect we know is the choice of your first book and the continuance of your continuation of your reading. And the anchor institution in our communities that does that actually isn't school districts today. It's not. I'm not denying their importance, obviously, but it's the position of libraries to build that culture, that learning culture. If there's anything we're trying to do in this library, and that I think we all ought to be trying to do in the library world, it is to build that learning culture. Libraries have a bigger and bigger role with the rollout of the internet and smartphones, and big fiber, broadband, et cetera. The gaps are getting bigger. The achievement gaps are getting bigger. The access questions are getting bigger. But the most important thing is also getting lost in our debates about computer learning, and that is, we know that there's a certain culture of what Mariah Evans talks about, of imaginative richness, cognitive skill development, and ultimately the creation of an imaginative world for children and ultimately for adults that opens their minds to the world, and that's the single most important thing. I think all this research that we're seeing actually leads to that conclusion, and to the conclusion that what you're doing here today is really important. So thanks for being in the Kansas City Public Library. Robin Dale, it's all yours.
Good morning, and thanks so much to Crosby and his team for allowing us to have this event here today at the Kansas City Public Library. I'm Robin Dale. I'm the Associate Deputy Director for Library Services at IMLS, and I'm here on behalf of Acting Director Maura Marks, who unfortunately could not join us today, as well as my IMLS colleagues who I see throughout the room and you will meet throughout today. I'd like to welcome you today to the event, and we're thrilled to have you here and join us. We want to express our gratitude for your time and the investment you're putting in here. We know you all have very busy schedules, and we are grateful that you're willing to spend that with us and participate here today. I'd also like to extend a special welcome to those of you who are joining us via the live stream. We had over 800 people join us via the live stream at last year's convening. We had more than 400 join us at the National Digital Platform convening, which was held approximately 2 weeks ago at the DC Public Library. If you're remote, you can still actively participate via Twitter. The hashtag for today is IMLS Focus, so hashtag IMLS Focus. We'll be monitoring the tweets and fielding questions. We will feed those to moderators, so you still have an opportunity to participate even if you can't be in the room with us today. This is the second of 3 such convenings that are being held over 6 weeks this spring with the goal of having a national conversation on shared priorities for libraries. This is also the second year that we're holding these IMLS Focus convenings. We found it enormously helpful last year to bring together a group like this for a focused conversation that will help inform our strategic priorities and grant making. The results of these convenings impact not just IMLS's National Leadership Grant Program, but also our Laura Bush 21st Century Librarian Program. We need to explore and consider how we prepare librarians and library staff to offer these types of learning-centered experiences through academic programs, professional development and continuing education, and research, and those will be the focuses of our afternoon conversation. Your contributions today will help us do our work. It helps us, in turn, make us smarter and make more strategic decisions about our grant making and the investments that we're making in order to effectively support great library services for the American people. So that's why we really have invited you here today. We want you to help us think about what those priorities are. As we look ahead to our 2016 funding, we actually take those recommendations and place them into our Notice of Funding Opportunity, and I think you'll see some of the results of the 2014 event in the 2015 Notice of Funding Opportunities that we had this year. We're counting on your active participation, and I'll reiterate that a little bit later, to make today's convening a success. So we're focused today particularly on learning in libraries. And I want to set the context for what we mean. We understand learning in libraries to encompass all of the things that libraries are doing today in this shift away from a very book-centric focus and towards a knowledge and learning-centric focus, which takes on so many guises depending on the community needs. And I mean all kinds of communities. The hands-on manifestations such as making and other participatory learning are but a few examples of the kinds of learning opportunities being offered by libraries today. I'd also argue that this shift has been coming quite quickly in the last few years, and it is not limited to public libraries. And in fact, last year, our colleague Susan Nutter from the North Carolina State University Libraries explained that academic libraries have been creating learning spaces, information commons, and different kinds of places and spaces for several years. And an example of that is her own James B. Hunt Library on NC State's Centennial Campus. So we all have very much to learn from each other, and I think you'll see that sort of diversity reflected in the room today. Through IMLS's discretionary program, we've invested millions of dollars in funding sorts of under a broad umbrella of learning in libraries. In the recent years, our National Leadership Grant Program, as well as the Laura Bush program, have moved towards funding learning-based projects that have the greatest prospect of having broad national impact. We've also broadened how we've been thinking about learning. Though in 2012 and 2013, we worked with the MacArthur Foundation to help design, plan, and create approximately 24 learning labs across the country, we're now focusing less on the space itself learning spaces themselves, and building more on what we know and helping both libraries and the profession move forward. For example, we're interested in professional development and training that focuses efforts outward to benefit the greatest number of people and libraries. This is something to keep in mind as we move forward today. So let me take a few moments and share some of the investments IMLS has made in the last year that fall within the themes we will be discussing today. So in participatory learning, the Making and Learning in Museums and Libraries, a project bringing together museums and libraries, including the Pittsburgh Children's Museum, the San Francisco Exploratorium, North Carolina State University Libraries, the Chicago Public Library, and the Maker Education Initiative. This project aims to provide museum and library professionals with a suite of tools and resources, hands-on professional development experiences, and a community of practice. The project's website and online publication will share the framework, makerspace studies, research and evaluation reports, as well as resources for field-wide replication. In early learning, we have Prescription for Success and Reach Out and Read, and this project will survey best practices in partnerships supporting early learning between museums and libraries and the medical community, and run pilots in 3 states, Connecticut, South Carolina, and Colorado. For digital inclusion, we have the Open eBooks Initiative. This project aims to provide museum and library professionals with a suite of tools and resources, hands-on professional development experiences, and also a community of practice. The project's website and online publication will share the framework, makerspace studies, research and evaluation reports, as well, again, also resources for field-wide replication. And then finally, we have the adult programming and workforce development. And the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment, and Training Administration and IMLS have been working together to highlight effective practices and encourage additional collaboration between the workforce investment system and public libraries. IMLS is also collaborating with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services to help libraries provide accurate and useful information about immigration and citizenship benefits, and promote an awareness and understanding of citizenship and ensure the integrity of the immigration system. So with all that in mind, I want to launch us into our day. We have a really ambitious agenda and a room full of deep experience. Several of our key library and research associations are here. Just to recognize a few, we have the American Association for School Libraries, the Association of Research Libraries, the Coalition for Networked Information, COSLA, the Chief Officers of State Library Agencies, the Urban Libraries Council, OCLC, Pew Research, just to name a few. This is a final reminder, I said I would reiterate this, a final reminder that we're really looking for active contributions and discussion from each of you today, whether you're doing a presentation or whether you're doing full participation, active participation from your chairs today. Really quick housekeeping. There are charging stations for your laptops, both under the large picture here and at the back table. The restrooms are out the door and straight down the hall, right past the coat room. We have food and refreshments, which will be available outside here. We're in the process of setting up a small conference room in case you need to make a private phone call and need a quiet area. If you have need for that, please contact our friends at Capitol Meeting Planning at the back table. And finally, if you need to leave and go straight to the airport following today and need to arrange for a taxi, please also see our friends at Capitol Meeting Planning and they will arrange one for you. It's not an environment where you can walk out and hail a cab. One will need to be paged for you, all right? Final bit, because we're webcasting today, I want to remind you, please, both to use the microphones. We'll have people who will be able to bring microphones around to you. Before you start speaking, please introduce yourself, providing your name and the organization that you're representing. All right, and with that, I would like to introduce our first session this morning. And to do so, I'd like to introduce Joan Lippincott from CNI, who will be our moderator for the first session. And if we can have the entire first panel join us up here. Thank you.